Well, welcome to the Business of the Community because life is local, where we have conversations with the entrepreneurs, leaders, and organizations helping Prince Edward Island thrive. And today I'm delighted to have the Mayor of Three Rivers, Debbie Johnston, join us today to talk about all things Three Rivers. And there's a lot to talk about. Welcome, Debbie.
Yes, thanks for having me, Paul. I really enjoy your podcast. I'm not sure if I can live up to Stephen Myers, but I'll try.
Well, this is a different podcast entirely
Yes.
from that one,
Yeah.
and that this can be thoughtful without actually hammering each other. But
Yeah.
I think a really good place to start with this conversation would be Darlene Compton's decision a couple of weeks ago, came out last week, to finally, after 19 months, sign the town's development bylaw into effect. What does that mean for you as a mayor? What does that mean for you as a council? What does that mean for us as a community?
It's a great move forward for the community as, we had some housing accelerator funding that was hanging on some of those changes. And as far as being more efficient as a planning and development department, somebody was waiting 3 months for a permit, and as soon as those changes were effective July 30th, that permit was issued the same day. So there's certainly things like that. It does speed up and make more efficient what's happening in here. It does allow for some more density because of the parking restrictions that are more more tangible parking restrictions, like reduction, I guess is the best way to say the parking restrictions, so that you can have more room on a lot to build an apartment building. Um, it just reduces red tape. We've had all these permits for somebody that wants to build a home, for example, and put a travel trailer on it while they're building their house. And every one of those were held up because they had to come to council. So they had to
Yeah.
go to planning board, then they had to go to council, and that was all that was all held up. And so it does reduce red tape. I can't thank Darlene Compton enough. I mean, she took the initiative to do what two other ministers didn't, and I really respect her for that.
Do you, I mean, to my eye, when I was watching that unfold, I thought political decisions were being made not to sign the documents, and Three Rivers became the scapegoat for a whole bunch of other issues. I've got no issue, and I don't think Three Rivers has any issue with sort of valid public debate, even criticism sometimes. But I mean, Three Rivers is a new community. It was formed in 2018. It's clearly had growing pains. How would you rate 8 years in of amalgamation?
The first 4 years were very rough, especially with the 12-member council. That's very hard to make decisions, keep under control, especially for Mayor McCauley. Moving down to 8 members has been a really big change, and I think this council has been very cohesive. I think we've worked really well together, and we've managed to accomplish a lot of things that, amazing projects. We have professional staff, and we have some great staff to back us up. And I think things the last 4 years, especially the last two, have just moved ahead. I'm really pleased with the way it's moved ahead.
Um, to my mind, some of the things that have happened have helped tamp down at least what was some of the criticism of Three Rivers before it started. Georgetown is doing really quite well in terms of infrastructure and investments that have been made there. As one example, I'm not sure whether the really rural areas would necessarily agree that amalgamation has been as beneficial. Um, but it's a bit of a dance, isn't it? It's hard to please everyone.
You'll never please everyone. I mean, I've learned that over the past 15 years of being in municipal politics. The rural areas, I guess, from my perspective, when I was a Monaco Town Councilor, they got the advantages that the town paid for. I mean, they used the rink, they used the library, they used the parks, the splash pad, whatever, and they didn't pay any municipal taxes.
Hmm.
And so I think this way, it's just it's spreading it out so that all the users are paying. Even if you're you say, well, I don't have any children. Well, I'm sure your grandchildren or your nephew. And it costs money to maintain a rink and maintain, the waterfront where your boat is and things like that. So I think it's just, I think you have to realize that there is advantages for everyone that lives in Three Rivers.
Well, yeah, that may run counter to what was promised back in the day, that you would only pay for, and maybe it was the wrong promise to make to get the amalgamation through, but there was the promise that you would only pay for services you received.
Well, and that's still true because there is still a big difference between, I mean, you're serviced by a rink, so that is a service. I guess that's the way I look at it. But there is a big difference between what somebody in, for example, Gasbro pays for taxes and what I pay for taxes in Lower Montague because I don't have street walks and street lights and sidewalks. There is still a big difference between those tax rates.
What, like in your checklist of things that need to get done in the community where things can be improved, where would you see and where we can find improvement or where we need to find improvement?
Well, I think we need to work with government to find more good paying jobs. I'm very, I guess, optimistic and maybe a little bit disappointed that it's taken this long for government to work on something to replace the shipyards in Georgetown. I mean, that community thrived when that shipyard was there. And I'm really would like to see something there, which would provide some, good paying jobs. We do need to work on our main streets. Our main street in Montague does need improvement. Um, uh, I think we've improved a lot of things. Like our rinks are working cohesively now. There's other projects that still need to be done. Like I'd love to see water, central water put through all of Georgetown because they only have part of that, but the government own that water system. Expansion of the water and sewer into different areas is always something that's going to need to be done. And the $6 million upgrades to the treatment plant right now will help that. For example, down the Britnell Road, there's been problems there before. You have
Hmm.
to look at we have the studies that have been done that tell us that where we should move to dense areas that could eventually have problems. So there are all kinds of things that still need to be done.
Well, and when you're on the municipal level, there's always a to-do list. And I think, I think a lot of people probably don't recognize the extent of what municipal councils are responsible for, but also certainly in some of the white noise of the last few years, Three Rivers has been criticized for things that don't even come close to following under their purview. Um, how has that impacted council? I mean, I don't. If you can say whatever you want in terms of the criticism, but the uh, it's easy to go into a council meeting because it's the only level of government that is really accessible. Um, and there's no real way of stopping anyone from saying whatever they want, regardless. Um, but it does come with consequences, and we've seen that. We've all seen that on social media with threats and accusations, and frankly, really, really the type of language that is irresponsible. When counselors and planning board members and staff are being accused of being on the take or members of the Chinese Communist Party or something like that, without, before anyone criticizes me, show me one bit of evidence um, to the contrary. And it's never been put forward. So in real human terms, what's the last 4 years been like?
It's been stressful. It's been hard on not only staff and council. It's been hard on our families too. We lost an absolutely great counselor, John Van Dyke, resigned for a number of reasons, and this what you mentioned would be part of it. So it has been stressful. It bothers me that staff were also attacked because, you know, they come here to do a job. We have a great staff now, but if that continues, people are going to rethink. Do I want to put up with that? Just in a job that I have? And that bothers me. I mean, I'm used to it. I can take it. But there's also been some things that have really bothered me. One of the things is the on the take thing, to think that we would actually benefit from, you know, just issuing a building permit is absolutely ridiculous. If I was benefiting and had as much benefits from from that they think that they're accusing me of, I probably wouldn't be sitting in this chair. You know,
Yeah.
I think some of the accusations and the misinformation are just gotten out of hand.
And
As
I guess in your seat, you probably perceive it as something that you have little recourse to fight back. You don't win if you get into a social media fight, and I suppose there might be some legal courses of action you could take, but that's very costly and probably not your best use of time as a human.
No, and all across Canada, I think people are using bylaws, the bylaw violation of bylaws that we have, access to information, procedural bylaws to weaponize council. And I think Alberta, if I'm correct, has really put their municipal bylaw or some bylaw on hold so that this can't happen. But it continues to happen here, and it costs the town money. A lot of them are expensive to get somebody to adjudicate or to to take on. And what I'm finding is nobody wants to take them on because they see the controversy here, and if their firm takes it on, well, they're thinking, is that going to be negative? Is there going to be negative consequences if they don't agree with my, if the complainant doesn't agree? So there's been that too.
But even things like, I think there's been 4 or 5 issues taken to Iraq, and you've had clear wins on at least 4. But Iraq as a body can't make a snap decision if its life depended on it. So it draws out the legal bills and the time frame. And I mean, Iraq is under review right now. Has anyone asked the commissioner who's examining Iraq to create sort of a fast track decision model for things like when an allegation of a monastery is impacting an individual, but the individual doesn't live within miles of the monastery? Why can't Iraq, in its wisdom, say, no, this doesn't hold merit?
Yep, no, great, absolutely a great point. When the town did a submission, we actually attached it to our council documents last night, and it shows, and that is absolutely some of the things that we mentioned. It cost us a lot of money in lawyers. I mean, Iraq won't even talk to you. I phoned once and asked for an update on something that was there for like 6 or 7 months. And the lady that answered the phone said, I said, Mayor Johnson, I'd like to ask for an update on our Iraq appeal. And she immediately said to me, no, we don't answer your questions. If the town wants information, your lawyer has to call us. So that's the kind of money it costs when people do these things. You can only imagine how much lawyers cost these days.
Well, it's an industry, but it also speaks, I think, to an organization that maybe because it's overburdened or maybe because it's too bureaucratic, but it just seems to not really have a sense of who it's serving anymore. But
No.
here's a question, Debbie. If we all say I mean, I make a living holding governments to account, right? And people will say I go over the line at times, which is fine. They literally have the option of suing me if I'm wrong. But it's a fine line between accepting criticism and criticism going over a perceived line, but then the overstep of what could be done to stop the criticism in the first place. I mean, where do you see the line? Where is the happy medium?
Are you referring to the happy medium with Iraq
No, the happy
or just in
medium
general?
in a if you had a magic wand to sort of fix things in Three Rivers,
Mhm.
um, what would public input look like to you?
Well, I've tried to encourage public input by having the community conversations, and we have had a few people drop in, but not nearly as many as I expected. We welcome constructive criticism and healthy debate, definitely. I mean, that's everybody's right, but it has to be done in a way that there's respect for everybody. accusations of being on the take without any evidence, blaming us because you don't understand what Three Rivers is responsible for, where the jurisdiction lies. Like, I, town council has absolutely no control over who buys a house in Three Rivers, or who buys how much land. But yet it looks like, we're aiding and abetting all this just because people, are misinformed, and they continue to accept, misinformation without doing their own research. And no, Paul, we do not fight on social media. That is absolutely a no as far as I'm concerned. I don't even engage in social media other than to put some family stuff up on my mayor's page. But I don't think fighting on social media gets anybody any place. So we will definitely not stoop to that level here, as long as I'm mayor.
Debbie, with municipal elections coming up in November, you know, what would you say? A, are you going to run again? And B, what's the argument you would give to anyone who comes up to you and asks, why would I ever want to run for council?
So to answer A, I will make a decision by the end of August. I have two daughters that play into this decision, so I want to discuss this with them because they do get very upset over the online harassment. Um, I can tell anybody that if you're interested in your community and you have the time, because it does take time, it definitely does take some time. You may want to have a bit of a thick skin. I'm sure there's some people in Three Rivers that fit that. Anyway, the reason I got involved in town council 15 years ago is because of my family. I love living in Three Rivers. I love living in Montague when I did. I drove to Charlottetown for 30 years to work so my kids could grow up in Montague. My three children and my five grandchildren are all living in Three Rivers right now, and I want them to stay. And I want this to be a great community to bring your children, for anybody to live in, for whether you're a senior or whether you're a young family looking for some place to go. We do have a great community. And I think some of the negativity overshadows the positives. Like, if you look around, we have schools, we have great schools, we have rinks. My grandson can drive his bike to school in grade 3 in Georgetown. Where else can you do that? And I just think it's a great place to live, and I just want to keep making it better. So everybody wants to stay. I'd also like to see some more industry and some more good paying jobs. So that's something I really like to work on. I mean, a few more Aspen camps would be amazing. But I think you really have to care about the whole community and not be hyper focused on just one thing, because there's a lot more to Three Rivers than one thing.
There are, and by the way, I mean, we should put the caveat in that um, municipal councilors being under attack on social media is not isolated to Three Rivers. I mean, it's sort of a reality we're seeing straight across the board. I do think that um, Three Rivers, the visceral anger is perhaps ratcheted up more than many. How have you and council, have you done anything to sort of navigate that in terms of just ensuring that you're all okay?
Yeah, Federation municipalities, through them, we do have access to a program that allows you to seek help. We talk about it often in here. We have done a few things with one firm, but you're right. It's all across the country. And, I, f- I feel for everybody that puts their name in for municipal politics, especially after, what our council has gone through the last 4 years. I was really glad to get invited to the Federation of Premiers meeting in Charlottetown. And it was right after the week that Tim Houston was attacked in Dalhousie. And I had a chance actually to talk to Premier Tim Houston about that. And, he was said that was terrifying. And like, that really upsets me. Is that what we've come to when people put their name forward for any kind of a public office? Is that what society has come to? Is that what social media has made this? Because, some of the things that, like land issues, for example, which get blown up on Three Rivers all the time, are only one small thing that this office looks after in the run of a day. There is so much, like I said, there's so much more to Three Rivers than one issue.
Well, and there's also the challenge of sort of reading, interpreting bylaws in a way that ha- it's a personal interpretation not supported by any fact or precedent.
And, our staff have been amazing. They've been under the microscope. Is everybody perfect? Have we made some mistakes? Of course, everybody. But I have all the respect in the world for our planning staff. We have three great people in that office. And when you look at doing 220 permits last year and $60.4 million in construction, that is pretty amazing for a small community of 8,800. And I have all the respect in the world for them. And yeah, you can interpret regulations, misinterpret regulation, I should say, and make that an issue. But like I say, that's only one part of Three Rivers, and there's no sense in arguing with some people because no matter what we say, it's never going to be right.
No, but there is the bigger question. Maybe we'll just end on this, Debbie. And I really appreciate your time. But what does it take in your check when you're checking boxes? What does it take to build a community? And I'm not just talking buildings or necessarily people. I'm talking connection because I think in some ways we've been okay at that, but in some ways we probably haven't done enough to sort of open the door to all the new folks who are in our community.
Yeah, that's something that we really need to do as well. I would like to focus more on integrating newcomers into our community. We do have some great groups that I participate in, and I've been to a number of different events that they've held. One of the really nice things that I attended lately was handing over the keys to a family that moved here from the Philippines about 5 years ago in Georgetown. And the gratitude and the happiness on their face to receive a Habitat house was probably one of the best things I've attended. It was just amazing to see, what that meant to them. So yeah, we do have to do more of that, definitely, because w- this is what our community is now. People don't like change, but we can't let change pass us by, or who we want to come here if we're still living in the 70s.
Well, it's tough to pay bills and provide even basic services that everybody wants to have if there's not tax money to pay for the services.
Exactly. Our our budget this year for municipal taxes, I think, is about $2.4 million. And, that is a reflection of all those building permits. And, our town is growing. It's developing. We have people moving into the industrial park out at Pools Corner. They're looking to expand that to the rest of the land they own. Every day we see somebody, we have, a number of small businesses open up, and I think I'd like to focus on them a little bit more too. I think that focus needs to be um, done a little
How
bit
do you
more
do
by
that?
town
I mean,
council as
that's
well.
obviously of interest to me.
Hmm.
If you look at communities, and I think to your point earlier about Georgetown potentially, um, the really neat communities in our region, St. Andrews, New Brunswick, Mahone Bay, whatever they are, what you will find is locally owned and controlled small businesses on a vibrant main street. And there are fewer decision makers around than there were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And I think as a community, we need to figure out how we can entice
Yep.
people to open operations.
And that's always part of conversations at our economic development committee that we have in conjunction with CBDC is to promote and try to support small businesses. And we've often talked about those two communities, Mahone Bay and, I was to Georgetown last Thursday and I just walked along Water Street. There is a number of small businesses in Georgetown and Teresa Mayor's Museum as well.
Yeah.
And I think we need to promote that more as a town. There is I visited, I think, 4 or 5 places when I was down there, and we need to do more Main Streeting like that. And that's one of my visions that I have.
Well,
Uh,
Georgetown is an amazing community. I mean, it has a
it is
spirit
an
that's
interesting
unlike
community.
any other in our area. Tim Banks has a really interesting
Oh,
proposal for the shipyard. I don't know whether it's practical because of the state of the shipyard, but that's the type of vision, transformational, you know? So it was a shipyard for 50 years. It doesn't mean it needs to be a shipyard for the next 50 years. And I'm always intrigued by people who can look at something and see something different.
that plan of Tim Banks's just blew me away. I could just, I could just imagine what that could do for Georgetown, and I just would love to see some government initiative. We'd certainly be behind that plan 100%.
Well, it wouldn't
Um,
be just Georgetown. It would be Georgetown,
be the whole,
Brudenell, Cardigan,
it'd be, yeah.
Montague. Everyone would benefit.
Yeah. I just listened to a lady that got an award, a national award, I think it was from Charlottetown. And she was saying that people actually want to come here for conventions. You know, I don't think anybody really, if you asked me if I wanted to go to Toronto for a convention, I don't think so. But if somebody asked me, if you want to go to PEI for a convention, yeah, someplace
100%.
like Georgetown, they are actually looking for places. And I think that's the kind of forward thinking we need to see more, maybe, from our government and and we do have that kind of thinking on our economic development committee. It's just, if we need to work with government and we need to get them on side for things.
Debbie Johnson, let's leave it at that. I really appreciate you taking part in the business of community because life is local. I
Okay.
think you've shed some bright lights on important issues today, and I appreciate it very much.
I thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thanks,
Thanks
Tom.
very much.